Hello everybody, thanks for stopping back by Wild Bird Creative. I have a piece here that I found while I was going through stuff. It is from years ago. It's just where I've cleaned off my palette knife and my brayer, and it's got a lot of built up layers, and now I want to make something with it. It's not done like this, that's for sure. But I'm thinking I might cut it into smaller sections and start a new project. Here is the 5x7 piece that I cut out of a larger sheet, and I'm just going to start putting scraps on top. And it's not really going to matter because 90% of it is going to get covered over. And that's fine. That's part of the process, part of the fun. So many scraps, and I love to use them because they tend to just add a little something to a piece. Let's just cover these right over. It's some old newspaper now. I mean, I shouldn't say old. It's only from 2020. But I left it outside so that it got nice and grungy and grimy looking. And I am letting them just hang off the edge. I'll trim them up later. You have to be willing in mixed media to let things go. To say, yes, I love that piece of paper, but it's okay if it gets covered up. Because it's a very fluid process. Sometimes as I work, I like to turn the piece. This isn't the angle that I started at. I've shifted it, and that way I'm looking at it from a fresh perspective. Another thing that helps keep it moving. What else have we got here? Whoops. Just keep layering it up. A little piece of scrapbook paper that I stenciled on. I've got, I know I've got another piece of that. There it is, right there. Let's see. right across here. So many layers going on now. All those layers of paint and now all this paper. Let's see. I am going to have to let this dry because there is a lot of adhesive on it. And I want everything to settle into place. Let's do, I want some color there, I'm just not sure what. You know what, I think what I'll do is put something of an entirely different feel right up there. There we go. I'm gonna let this dry and then we'll move on to the next layer, which will be even messier because it will involve paint. Okay, it is dry. Now, it looks like a lot. There's maybe a bit too much going on here right now, but it's okay because we're moving on to the next step and this is not going to be the top and final surface. I've got some Pentel oil pastels here, and yes, I am just scribbling on this. Just making marks. Kind of scribble writing and kind of just scribbling. And I just am doing red and blue. You can see, it just made marks. Next step, some gesso. And now you're probably thinking, wait, what? You're going to cover everything up? But it's okay. It's all part of the process. And I've just got one of those real cheap brushes that you can get at the hardware store. And I'm just going to come in and just work over the top of this in spots. I'm going to let some of it still stick through, or peek through, not stick through. Some of it will still show. It's just making things muted. I'm going to grab a stencil. This is my Sean Petite Vintage Quatrefoil, and I'm going to come in with a sponge, and I'm just going to pick up some of the gesso. Just little bits. It just leaves the tiniest bit of detail along the edge. You can just see it. And that's all I want. Everything is going to end up peeking through here and there, and that's the beauty of it. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is use a scribble stencil. This is a Stencil Girl product one, and we're just going to put it right like that. I'm going to use my same sponge, and I've just got this nice, it's not really ivory, it's not really ecru, but it's somewhere in that family. And I'm just going to come in and just move around, getting some spots here and there. Now, of course, when I lift this up, I will immediately press it down on another piece of paper. Actually, I think I'm going to cover the whole thing. I think I really want that background to show up in the lines. There we go. Look at that. You can see the colors, but the colors are on their own. And I'm just going to lay that down right there so that you can see. And brayer it off. And there I've got a great print for another piece. Let that dry before we move on to the next one, the next layer. I'll see you then. In case you forgot where we started from, this is where I cut this piece. It was right along here. And you can still see some of the turquoise and orange showing through. Now I'm back with a black oil pastel, and I'm just creating a line across here. And I'm being very, very loose with it because it's just meant to break up the space. I might even add a little bit of orange in here too. Give a little more depth to that line. Let me set this aside. So here we are. I'm going to come in with my finger and just smudge this. I want it to be very, very soft. Look at the way that's just blending in. It's still clearly there, but now it's less about the line and more about the shape that it makes and how it breaks up the space. Now I'm going to grab another Stencil Girl product stencil. And I'm just going to use plain old white paint. And I'm going to put it right on top of the ecru. And I'm going to use a very textured sponge this time, because I want this effect to be more suggested than exact. I want there to be a lot of texture to it. You can see it's just giving me a nice feel along here. Let me add another little bit just along the bottom. I love this stencil. It's got such a nice feel to it. Let's come through here. There we go, and I'll hold it up close so that you can see. This is starting to look like a wall where people might have posted notices or put graffiti over the years. Let's see, I'll roll this off. It's not really going to show up, but it's a good way to clean the stencil. Now, as you look at this, with the details that we've got, you may think it doesn't need anything else and that I should just paint over it and start over, but I'm going to bring in some turquoise. Again, I'm putting it right onto the palette with everything else, and I'm going to use the same stencil, and I'm going to let it mix and come in, and I'm going to do the corners and along the edge, and you'll see why. See how beautiful that is? Oh, now this is a turquoise that has some sparkle to it. It's a metallic one. So you end up with a beautiful bit of glitz and glam. I also like using this color because it does pull up from the background that bit of turquoise that was in there when we started. And by letting it just mix with the white, you just end up with a really beautiful detail. I'm just checking as I go to make sure that I get it looking the way I want it to. A little darker in this corner, I think. Maybe a little bit down here still. And maybe a spot right in here. Just a tiny bit. Flip it over. This one will leave a nice reverse print. This is going to be a great background for another piece. So here we are. We are pretty much at the end of this piece. I want to add a word, and I've got two options. I can come in with one of my Stencil Girl words and put it in, which I think I might do. Let's see, fearless. You know what? I think I'm going to do fearless because it can be hard to start with a background and totally eliminate it. It takes some doing. You're not going to want to do it, but it's a good thing to do. I think I'm going to do purple. I don't have any purple showing in this. And I'm going to use a makeup sponge. So there's my fearless. Let's get it exactly where I want it. Oops, almost put it into the wrong color. And I'm coming in and I'm going over this lightly the first time. I can always add more. But I don't want too much paint because I don't want it to smudge out underneath the stencil. Let's see. Okay, that's looking good. Let's get a little more on here and come back in and darken it. There we go. I love how that looks. I'm going to get my art crayon and just darken the corners a little bit. I could use the oil pastel again, but I'm going to use this one. It's a little bit bigger and a little easier to handle. Come right along the edge there. And I'm just going to smudge it out. Put a little more down along here. Still got to dry, but there it is. Fearless. Dive in, give it a try. Cover up those backgrounds. It's the best way to learn. I hope you all enjoyed this and will make something great with some of your discarded papers that were projects that were going nowhere, but you didn't get rid of them. Thanks for stopping by. Wild Bird Creative.